Good evening. Welcome to Conversations with Crystal. I am your hostess, Crystal, and this week I have another amazing guest for you, and his name is George Rigatos. Hi, George. How are you today?
I'm very well, Crystal. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Thanks so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. I know your time is precious.
Oh, I'm more than welcome to lend my time to converse with Crystal, as it says.
I appreciate that. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Now, George, I've got to tell you and the listeners, you have to be one of the most fantastic guitarists I've ever heard.
Oh well, I'm humbled. I don't really consider myself that great. I'm okay. I've been doing it a while. I should be okay at it. But I feel as if I'm improving every day. I'm getting better at it. I'll keep playing probably till the day I die. But yeah, I
Well,
have been
I
doing
hope
it a
so.
while. I have been doing it
Yeah.
since I was 7, so I'd hope that
Seven.
I started when I was 7. And in fact, my earliest memory is probably when I was about 4 years of age, and I had a ukulele given to me for I think it was a birthday gift. And because it was a crappy toy ukulele, it just
Mm.
wouldn't stay in tune. I remember being quite upset by it because
Oh.
I wanted to play music on it, and he kept ruining my dreams because it kept going out of tune. It was like, damn, this thing's crap. I need to get myself a better ukulele.
Oh boy. So when do you reckon you got your first guitar? Like,
Oh, it was
what
7.
was it?
I
Or was it
was
another ukulele?
no. It was I hassled my parents so much, and they saw me jumping up and down on the bed, playing, singing along and pretending to play guitar on a tennis racket and stuff by the age of 6 and stuff. So by 7, they capitulated and they gave me a guitar. They gave me just a nylon string. I think it was about a 3/4 size nylon string classical guitar. But
Mm-hmm.
of course, they also had to give me lessons, so, which wasn't too bad at first, but then it became a bit of a grind. But I did learn how to read the dots and all of that, and etc. And it was great. It was very difficult at first, a lot more difficult than I expected, and a lot of people don't appreciate how difficult it is to start learning. But
No.
once you overcome that initial hump, like I remember because it really, if your fingers aren't used to it, and you don't have these little calluses that you develop,
Mm.
it really does hurt after a while. Your fingers, it hurts you, with your fretting hand. And as a kid, I
Mm.
remember like, that's okay, I'll just put band-aids on. But of course,
Oh.
but no, it doesn't work. It's just ridiculous. They get in the it's just don't try it. Just
Yeah.
but eventually, you build up those calluses, and you don't feel it as much. And once you get over that initial hump and you start building some finger memory, it just felt, I don't know, like an extension of who I was.
Yeah,
Um,
just a natural thing for you.
yeah, it does. It feels very natural to play most stringed instruments, actually, not just guitar. I've ventured out now in the last little, decade or more into other stringed instruments with bass guitar and banjo, lap steel, ukulele. Went back to the ukulele. A whole bunch,
Nice.
baritone guitars, a whole bunch of other things, because it's basically the same sort of technique. And once you
It
understand
is. It
once you
is.
understand how the
Yeah.
way that music sort of works, you can apply that to most instruments, or all
Absolutely.
instruments, I should say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
I
I had a love for music, and it sort of like manifested itself in the stringed instruments, I suppose, because it was, my mother really loved Elvis Presley, perhaps. And I
Oh,
always
she
remember,
couldn't love anybody better.
oh yeah, right, I know, and I always remember, he, had the guitar slung over. Back then I was a kid, I thought he was actually, the guitarist.
Yeah, yes.
Not like now. I realize, yeah. But then again,
Yeah. Oh, wow. So it was your mum's love of Elvis, you think, and the music being played around the house. Were your
yeah.
parents musical, like sing or play any instruments?
No, neither of them actually played any instruments, but they were both keen lovers of music. My father loved his Greek folk music and classical music, so I was exposed to a lot of that as well, and I love that as well, still do. My mother also loved like the Everly Brothers and the Bee Gees and all of that stuff that was pretty popular at the time. And
Yeah.
I remember just some of my peak musical experiences were like sitting down in front of the stereo, the Technics quadraphonic sound system that my father had. It was so beautiful, valve sounding amp, and
Oh, wow.
I just plug these headphones in and put these vinyl records on one after the other and just be lost in these worlds. It was fantastic,
Wow.
yeah, phenomenal.
Oh, absolutely. So who would you say then in bands or artists back then when you were really quite young,
Mm.
who really got your blood flowing?
Well, yeah, I suppose initially, my very earliest recollections of music that really interested me was Elvis. Obviously, that early rock and roll sound was very exciting, you know. Um,
Mm.
but I also really did enjoy the harmonies of the Everly Brothers and their incredible song structures, and just the vocal harmonies that they had were just phenomenal, and some very, very
Yeah.
catchy songs. But also, of course, I was I was exposed to a lot of Greek folk music, a lot of the Greek, what's called the Greek blues, or emetica, and a lot of other styles of, and a lot of bouzouki. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of that sort of that string. So I have played a bit of bouzouki, but geez,
I
that's
was going to
just
ask you that.
yeah, I have
Yeah.
played. Yeah, I actually am trying to get my hands on one, but and funny enough, I have borrowed one from the Ashfield Library. They have an instrument library that you can borrow from if you're part of the Inner West
I
Library.
did not
That's
know
yeah.
that.
Your listeners may need to check that out if they're in the Inner
I think
West.
so.
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
have some really great instruments. They have a tenor guitar, they have normal guitars, obviously ukuleles, a whole bunch of other, like there's some world music instruments, like there's some Chinese instruments that I've borrowed. There's a big one, four-stringed instrument called a ruan, Ruan. They've got
Yeah,
one
I've
that's
heard
like
of
a
that.
bass one. It's like huge. And I've recorded with
Mm.
that. It's fantastic. But yeah,
Wow.
yeah, the world of music. It's never ending, right? But
Oh,
yeah,
it is.
yeah,
I think that's really exciting that a library has instruments to
isn't it?
lend out. I think
Absolutely.
that's fantastic, isn't it?
Absolutely. And
I've
I
never.
mention it to people and they're like, they go, I've never heard of it. It's like, yeah, right. I think more people, it's something that it should be, you know, um, definitely letting people know. Maybe they'll access it, and because music is for the people. It's not something. I know that music has been devalued in the marketplace, etc., with the streaming services, etc. But
Mm,
really, the whole point of music is to connect people,
absolutely.
and there's no better way than doing that now than doing it live and playing music
Oh,
live.
you know what? Isn't it just the best
Oh, it
thing?
is. It is. The communities
The best thing.
communities sprout up around music. Movements, political or otherwise. Cultural movements. All of these things. There's always music that accompanies that. Whether it
Yeah.
actually inspires it or whether it accompanies it. It you know, it's always the thing. And a lot of it's really funny now with the whole social media game that a lot of people oh, musicians shouldn't be political. Music and politics shouldn't be mixed, etc. It's like, what are you talking about? Music is politics.
Yeah.
Of course it is. All
That's a
art,
very good
all art,
point.
all art is political. Of course it is.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and if it isn't, well, then it's not really art. It's pop. And I know you could say, well,
Yes.
Andy Warhol really exploited that with his pop art movement. And then I guess, well, yeah, he showed that, yeah, you could create art that is meaningless, but what's the point?
Yeah. What's the point exactly?
Yeah.
So now, what was the name of that library again,
So
George?
Ashfield Library.
Good, so the listeners can
Yeah.
go down there and have a look. Have you ever played an oud?
And
O
oud,
U
no, I
D.
haven't. No, I have been keen. They are fretless, and yeah,
Oh,
they're fretless. And there's different types. There's sort of like there's the Egyptian oud, who there's a very good Australian oud player called Joseph Tawadros, who you may have heard of.
I have, yes.
Yeah, and Joseph's fantastic. But yeah, I haven't had a chance to get my hands on an oud, but I'd love to. But
Yeah.
it's a different technique again. That whole fretless. I play some fretless instruments in the sense, well, slide guitar and lap steel,
Yep.
and I actually have my my drummer friend Ed Rodriguez. Shout out to him. He gave me a fretless guitar, an electric fretless guitar, and I've got it, and it's great. But geez, it's.
I was going to, how hard is it to like
Fretless
get it?
instruments are very difficult because of the whole intonation. All those frets that are on a guitar, on a bass guitar or a guitar, they basically are doing the work for a guitarist in a sense. They're the actual pitched notes, right? All you have to do is put your finger behind them, and that's where the string or the note will be. But with any fretless instruments, whether it's a fretless bass or fretless guitar, if you move your finger a millimeter, then you've changed that note.
Yeah.
that's
yes.
And that's the intonation of the note, and that's why violinists, any fretless instrument, they need to be able to hear themselves so they can hear that they're nailing those notes.
And the ones I've heard do it so well.
They do, and it's
just
this
like,
once
how do you
again,
do that?
it's just practice. There's no other.
Yeah.
A lot of people come up to me and they I don't know, and I guess we all want to find that secret back door or that secret answer that saves us the hassle of doing 10,000 hours of practice. But
We
really,
do.
there is no
So, George,
shortcut.
what is your secret? What was your shortcut? Or there wasn't one,
There
you just
isn't.
played and
The-
played and played.
The secret is just love it so much that you don't
Yes.
realize how much you're doing it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, be careful that you take breaks so you don't hurt yourself, because you can really injure yourself by like just being in a position for really long times, extended periods of times, and you may end up like really damaging something. I know.
Oh, yeah,
As you get
especially your
older, it
wrist.
seems to happen more often.
Especially your wrist, I suppose, because if it's not at the right
wrist,
angle.
wrist and shoulders, but
Yeah.
I tend to suffer problems with my rotator cuff. So for me, it's the shoulder.
You and me both.
Yeah, so for me, it's the shoulder I need to be careful of. But yeah, everyone's different.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, be careful of that.
Yeah. So when you were young, so you got your first guitar at about, what, 6? Now, was it a good...
6, 7.
7? Was it a good guitar or just a...
Oh, no.
Did your parents... No, I was just going to say they probably really wouldn't have known a quality instrument, because most people don't.
Well, no, they just would, I was 7 years old, I've got kids of my own, and, going out and buying, even a $500 decent guitar wasn't really what they were going to do. They just bought me a beginner guitar, a student guitar. I'm not sure how much it cost and that, but it was a present, and I was thrilled. I was absolutely overjoyed. Couldn't get enough of it, and then I'd drag it into the toilet, into the bathroom, because the natural reverb in the bathroom made it sound better. And I was just like, my parents like, "What are you doing in there?" It's like, I'm not a teenager yet, so okay. I got my guitar with me. All right.
So, can you remember the brand name of that guitar, and do you still have it?
No, I do not have it. I have no idea where it's ended up. I don't know. But my first electric guitar, I do remember what brand name that was.
Yeah.
And I do know where that ended up, though I don't know where it currently is. But probably by the age of 9, they could see that I was very serious about playing guitar, and I kept hassling them about, no, please, can you get me an electric guitar. And then my father, my mother had enough of me, nagging her. So she went on my father. We went up to his, he had a service station up in Marrickville here. And I remember it to this day. He went to the cash register and he pulled out $200. Back in 1979, I guess, a bit of money. And I was like,
I would have been.
I couldn't believe it. Hadn't heard of that much money coming in. Wow, $200.
Yeah, wow.
And then we went down to, there was a music store down in on the highway, Princess Highway in Rockdale, called Lombardo's, owned by the Lombardo family, I believe. No longer there.
No longer there.
No
but
longer
my
there.
dad.
I need the car. They're selling cars there now, I think.
Yeah.
Volvo dealership or something. Probably
My
both.
dad bought me a flute from there.
Really?
When I was in school, yeah.
There you go. So we went in there, and sure enough, these guys just were like, all right,
Yep.
beginner guitar, you've only got $200. We're not going to give you. You're obviously not in the league for a Fender or a Gibson, that's for sure. So what they did, they pulled down a Strat copy. And I was just like, as soon as I saw it, I loved it, but it was a pretty crappy copy. It was called an Easy Rider.
Okay. Never heard of that one, no.
It didn't, the neck didn't even have a truss rod in it. It had, instead of like a 5-way pickup switch selector, it had like 3 2-way switches for each individual pickup. Oh, anyway, it was a piece of crap, but and it was made of pine or something. Anyway, it was really dodgy, but I didn't care. It was my first electric guitar, and I loved it.
And you loved it.
Absolutely loved it. And it wasn't until I was a teenager and ended up getting better guitars that I passed it on to a friend of mine, Terry Zolvia, who was interested in playing guitar and stuff, and I'd been teaching him some stuff. I was just like jamming with him occasionally, and I just gave it to him. He was just like, "Oh wow, really?" He was like, "Yeah, man, here you go." And I asked him maybe a couple of years ago when I saw him, like, "Dude, have you still got the Easy Run?" He goes, "Oh no, man, I think I got rid of that when I moved from such and such." But yeah, yeah, I know. I don't know.
I could only imagine what the frets would have looked like.
Oh, yeah, I
you would have worn them right down, I reckon.
I have photographs of it somewhere. My mother does, I guess. Because I was playing, like, I remember playing it in, so way back, you've heard of Lazy Bones, obviously, in Marrifield.
Of course, yeah.
So way back before Lazy Bones was Lazy Bones, it actually used to be a Greek taverna. Way back.
Did it really?
Yeah, in the late 70s and early 80s. I can't remember what the taverna was called, but it was right there. And I remember going up there. My father loved going to, and they had to book. And my guitar teacher, he was an Australian Greek man who played guitar in the house band at this taverna that is in the location that is now Lazy Bones. So we would go down there, and he would get me up as a 9-year-old, and I would jam with the house band.
No way.
Yes.
How good must you have felt? You must have felt like 10 foot tall, man.
It was amazing, and just like as a 9-year-old getting up there in front of a whole bunch of Greek Australians who are getting drunk on Retsina and Ouzo and stuff, and they've been like dancing along to all this Rebettica and stuff, and I get up there and I do like this rock and roll stuff on electric guitar. And like I do, like, and he'd encourage me, like my guitar teacher would encourage me to like slide down on my knees and everything when I would solo.
Oh.
And I had this really bright red shirt with like white collar tips and everything.
How cool!
Oh God, it was hilarious. Yeah,
I bet you couldn't slide on your knees these days, George.
No. Well, if I did,
I can't.
I wouldn't get back. That'd be the last time I did it. I could do it once.
That'd be it then, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh dear. So, so you did like first playing with other people was 9 years old.
Yeah,
that's just incredible.
That was the first time I got up on stage and played. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh wow. And I think then the bug probably bit, and you were like, "I'm going to do this for the rest of my life."
I'm a firm believer that in order to properly be bitten by the bug, and in order to kind of really be inspired to want to learn an instrument, a musical instrument, you need to have a peak musical experience.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I believe I had several of them. I believe like early on, I had a peak musical experience listening to the music that I was surrounded by, because as a youngster, you have no filter, so you express your emotions incredibly and you take it all in. And then later on, listening to the music in the headphones, and then but then that first occasion where you first get that applause and stuff, it's quite a peak experience in itself that sort of like shatters everything that you've previously gone through.
It is, absolutely, isn't it? And to know that everybody's clapping for you, they're all cheering for you.
And it's sort of addictive, and you need to be careful that it doesn't sort of like conjure up the old ego trap of like, thinking that somehow got some sort of special gift or anything. And so
Well,
humility is a large part of the
it's
learning
key.
process. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, George, I could safely say that the ego hasn't got you. You're the most humblest person I've just about ever met, I reckon.
Oh, you're very
And
kind.
your talent is just so exceptional. You know, when I first saw you down at the Ball Face Stag, you go there for the blues music, right? And then
Yeah.
you got up and I just went, my head just like nearly whiplashed. And I went, who is this? What is that he's playing? Oh my God.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I hurt you. I really didn't want to send
No,
you to
it was in a
emergency.
good way. And I
Oh,
just thought, I've never heard, like, of course, we all hear Stevie Ray Vaughan and Jeff Beck, right? But
oh yeah, yeah.
you're different and better again than them, you know,
It's
in
a, it's
my
an yeah, it's an
opinion.
interesting thing. This being able to find your voice in music, I think, is key. Because I think, especially for guitarists in the blues genre, like I can rattle off at least half a dozen names. Here we go: Ray Beadle, Adam
Mm.
Pringle, Simon Kenny Lewis,
Oh,
Matt
yeah.
Ross, all PJ O'Brien, all these my peers. We all went through that stage of like playing the Steve Ray Vaughan stuff and
Yeah.
wanting to learn that stuff, and obviously playing a bit, sounding a bit like him,
Mm-hmm.
And part of the problem with that is you're not really like, it's part of the learning that you need to do to understand that language, that Stevie language. But if all you do is get stuck there, you never
Yeah, then
really move on as an artist. You're really just a clone of someone that you're never going to fully be, right?
true.
And like,
Well, no, nobody could be
no one
Stevie
could
Ray
be
Vaughan.
like the closest I've
No.
seen was Ray Beadle many years ago did a basement gig where it was a Stevie Ray Vaughan special. He was like, "Nah, okay, this is the only." People keep asking me to do this, and he did nothing but Stevie Ray Vaughan songs, and he did them just as close as he could to as what he would consider Stevie Ray Vaughan. And but Ray's the only guy.
Wow.
Yeah, Ray's the only guy that could do that, and he did it so well. And and it
Mm-hmm.
was an homage to Stevie, and like the closest we're going to get to seeing him live, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Well,
So yeah,
well.
but yeah,
Oh,
like Ray, Ray now is he can play all of that stuff, but he's more than that. Just like Adam,
yeah.
Adam's now more than just Steve Ray Vaughan. So is Simon Kenny Lewis, all of these players, and I like to think that I've moved on from that and I've come up with
Well,
my own sound or my own voice.
well, you have to grow as a musician, don't you? I mean,
Absolutely, and
you've got to stay kind of current, regardless of the genre of music that you're playing. You've got to stay always improving and always, because if you bring
always,
out a record, an
yeah, yeah.
EP
Any music,
or
yeah.
any music that you bring out and it's just the same old, well, then people will buy it because they love you, but it's not reaching the masses more because you're not improving.
Well,
So
I think yeah,
you
I think
need to
in the
keep
end, just
improving.
to satisfy your own self. Or for me, I'd like to feel that every time I'm putting more music out there, or every time I'm trying to go out there and play, even in a live situation, I'm trying to play better than the last time. You know,
Yeah.
and I
Well,
know
but
that can be a trap in itself. This having any expectations, and that's a whole another
yeah,
discussion, I guess.
yeah,
But overall, the trick is to try and say something new.
yeah,
If all you're
absolutely.
doing is
But
saying the same thing over and over and over again, eventually, people are going to stop listening.
yeah, well, and you get bored as well.
Absolutely, that's right.
You
Yeah,
know, but there's a few players that I know, and you can be outside of a venue and you hear playing, and you're like, "Yep, I know that that's George, or I know that that's Simon Kenny Lewis, I know that that's PJ." And I
yeah,
know that that's Robbie,
and I yeah,
you know,
and I think
and because you all
that's a
have your
that's a
own
yeah, and
voice.
that's a great compliment to be a like, just like most of us can listen to like one bar or one note of Derek Trucks and go, oh wow, that's Derek Trucks, or wow, that's BB
Yeah.
King, right?
Oh,
And
yes.
that's
Yep.
that's that's sort of like, for me, that's what you want, so that people can just automatically recognize your voice. And if your
Yeah.
guitar is your instrument, that's your voice. Just like,
Yeah.
you hear Ella Fitzgerald, you can recognize her voice immediately. Melody Gardot, whatever, all of these very recognizable voices. And it's the same with any instrument that you play. And it may not be the tonal sound, it's to do with choice of notes,
Yes.
timing, attack, a
Yes.
whole bunch of other things,
Yes.
dynamics.
Yeah. And subtlety too.
Absolutely. The nuances is where it's at.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Yeah.
so too.
Yeah.
So I had a question on the tip of my tongue, and it's just flown right away.
That's okay. We'll come back.
I think we
sure.
might go back to from playing at 9 years old to your community. Where did you go from there?
Oh, so I progressed to high school. So of course, high school was rather difficult, as it is for most teenagers. But because there's a lot of peer pressure, and you want to fit in, And so of course, I suppose I was bringing in a lot of music that my peers at the time would have considered to be uncool. So it's sort of like, while I was enjoying, like, going through my period of enjoying AC/DC and Deep Purple and Hendrix and the Allman Brothers Band and Clapton, old man music, I guess, maybe. And,
It isn't.
and like my peers are listening to punk and Radio Birdman and, the Saints and all of that.
I know what I'd rather listen to.
Look, and don't get me wrong, I forced myself to listen to it, and to this day I still like that music. I don't listen to it often, and like the Saints, I love the Saints. I actually was lucky enough to meet Chris Bailey years ago in the Netherlands, and lovely man.
Cool.
I got to jam on giant. We stayed up all night with his Swedish wife, and we jammed away on ukuleles till the morning. It was great.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, isn't it crazy?
Oh, yeah. Have you done much overseas travel? We'll get back to that question in a minute. We didn't finish. But just while I think of it. Now, have you done much overseas travel where you've played, gone over there to play guitar, or you've just gone for a holiday or whatever and kind of been drawn in and ended up playing anyway?
Well, I've done both. I have done the going over there and doing some touring, and I've also gone over there just to to have a holiday, and ended up buying a guitar and then going around and sitting in jams or even doing some gigs. So
that's fantastic.
That's pretty easy to do if you know where to go and speak to the right people. Is because most musical communities are very inclusive and inviting and hospitable. They're not. They are. It's all about love in a way. Music.
Absolutely.
Music is love. Right, so musical communities are all about positive energy and that love of like giving. So therefore, I was lucky enough to do some gigs in Clarksdale the last time I was there in 2016.
Cool. Yeah.
With some local musicians that were fantastic. Leandrew Williams Jr. is a fantastic drummer, and Heather Cross was the bass player and singer. We played at the probably the most iconic venue in Clarksdale, which is Ground Zero Blues Club, which is co-owned by Morgan Freeman.
That sounds like a really cool place.
Oh, it's fantastic! It's just such a. It's I can't even begin to describe it. It's just a place best to be visited to kind of an experience.
And I think that's on my list.
Yeah, that Clarksdale is great. There's also Levon's, which is owned by Naomi King, she used to co-own the Vanguard. She's over there now in Clarksdale. So Levon's is another place that I played in as well, over there in Clarksdale. Clarksdale's a great little blues community. Not a very, a bit of an impoverished town, but geez, they love their blues. They have the Juke Joint Festival. So I was there in 2016 and was fortunate enough to be there for the Juke Joint Festival. Got to see Chris Tone Kingfish when he was still only 19 or 18.
My goodness.
Yeah. Met him.
Isn't he a freak?
Oh, he's such a sweetheart, and he's the most softly spoken guy.
Yeah.
sweetheart. It's so gorgeous. And yeah, and that Duke Joint Festival was just magic. I also managed to go up to Memphis for the Blues Awards. Yeah, it's just, and funnily enough, the only reason I got to go to those Blues Awards because of the people that I was hanging out with, Heather and Andrew. Lee Andrew, I should say. They down in Clarksdale, they kind of rang me up. And they're like, "Man, are you still in Memphis?" Because I've gone up to Memphis. And then I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh man, we've got a spare ticket for the Blues Awards. You interested?" I was like, "Yes."
Yeah. Yes.
So they kind of like got me a pass into the Blues Awards, and like it was just, just couldn't believe it.
Surreal.
Yeah,
I could imagine
it
it'd be just
really,
quite
really
surreal.
was. It really was. Plus that trip was just incredible because I also managed to go down to New Orleans
Oh,
for the Jazz Fest, the Jazz and Heritage Festival, which I'd never been to before. Which I was just I'd been to New Orleans before, but not during the festival. And oh my lord, it was like
went
going.
off.
It was like the pilgrimage to Mecca.
Oh,
And
wow.
for all musicians, I really, really recommend going to, what is it, the Hajj? Is that what they call it in Islam? It really is like, go to Jazz Fest in New Orleans during Jazz Fest and go there for the whole fortnight, and
Oh,
you'll see
wow.
it's just you open up the gig guide and you just are spoilt for choice. You are almost like paralyzed by choice. Just like, oh
Wow.
wow, who should I see? Oh, Stevie Wonder's playing there, but there's all oh, shall I go see George Porter Jr.? Oh, or should I go see? Oh, there's just so many options, and you get woken up to the sound of marching bands because it's really
Oh,
it's horns and trumpets and drums and piano. It's that sort of
oh,
a town.
it
And
sounds like heaven. It
it
really
really is.
does.
I really recommend it for everyone. Oh,
Yeah.
anyway,
So,
yeah.
so George, how do you find, because that's so massive what you're telling us, compared to the Australian Blues Fest, and or I don't maybe shouldn't say compared to, but
Oh, well,
when you
yeah.
look at Blues Fest and the festival down at Goulburn
Mm,
and all the other music festivals around Australia, which I'm sure you've been to many of,
yeah.
how would you say, because we're such a laid back lot of people,
Mm. Well,
um,
to give you it's scale. Firstly, there's
yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's like even Byron, or it's not even Byron anymore, is it? But Peter Noble's Blues Fest, which I've been to
mm,
several times, and I went for 10 years running when it was at Red Devil Park. Saw some of the best bands. I saw Bella Fleck and the Flecktones. I saw uh, Government Mule. I saw so many great acts that I never would have otherwise. But now it's
yeah,
further up the road, probably closer to Mullumbimby, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. I think so. Yeah.
In any case, it's a dedicated ground, and I haven't been there recently, but I've heard it's a really fantastic site. But
Now,
put it
did you
put it this
play
way,
there?
I haven't played there in years. I haven't, it's been a long time since they've, kind of like gone down to that bottom, that low, that far. Like Ray plays there quite a bit, and it's sort of
Yes.
like
Yeah.
if you're a bit lower than Ray, like Clayton as well, Clayton Dolby.
Yeah.
It's sort of
Yeah.
like getting down beneath that. There's not enough pull for the show, I guess. They want
Okay.
bigger names now. If you look at the lineup, Peter still puts in some blues acts, and that's great, and I'm so glad he still puts Ray Beat on that in. But it'd be great if he also put in some of the younger blues acts that are coming up, like the New South Trio or Chloe Kay and the
Chloe
Crusade. Yeah,
K. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
just
Yeah.
get something. The only way they're going to get a following is by getting them in front of a bigger audience, right?
Absolutely, and that that's part of why I started the podcast too, because I thought we have all these talented musicians that you
Mm,
never hear on a radio station, that you never
never
hear
hear of.
anybody
Yeah,
talking about, and it's
yeah.
just like, why not? We're just so spoilt for talent. Why aren't our acts bigger?
It's true, and
You know?
this is where we get to what is special about New Orleans, and it
Yeah,
comes
right.
down to one thing: is once again they have a sense of community.
Yeah,
The
right.
whole like out of like I've been to quite a few musical cities in the States,
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I haven't been to Berlin, and I hear that there's a great scene in Berlin currently and other places in Europe. But because we're talking about the blues, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
talk about mainly US cities. But I've been to Austin in Texas.
Yep.
Fantastic live music.
Right.
I've been to Chicago. I've been to New York City.
Oh.
I haven't been to Nashville, but I've heard things about Nashville, and I have been to LA and San Fran, etc. But New Orleans, out of all of those cities, has one thing that none of them do: is
Yeah.
they have a history that basically
Yes.
says we invented jazz, and
Yeah.
they did.
Right.
They did. That's the birthplace of jazz. That's where Louis
Yeah.
Armstrong was born.
Oh, was
Begin with.
it?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it was basically the confluence of many cultures, right? You had the French, you had the Creole, you had obviously the American Indian, and we also had the African Americans. That all of this, they created the gumbo, which was
Yeah.
these incredible amount of styles. So they ended up coming up with, you got Cajun, you've got
Yeah.
yeah, the amount of genres out of such a small area. You've got swamp
Yeah.
blues. You've got,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, you've got funk blues. All the meters stuff. You've got that Professor Longhair, New Orleans funk. You've got
Mm-hmm.
all of these other styles. You've got, and then you can cut across to all the big band stuff.
Yeah.
They basically just kept on creating music. A
And
lot
how
of
good is
music.
that? How good is that?
And that's what their whole lifeblood has been. They realized
Mm-hmm.
their culture was always tied to music,
Yep.
community, and food.
Yep.
And that's what they do
Yeah.
really, really well. They have,
And
seriously,
it's
out
a
of all
winning
the places in
combination.
America, that's the place you want to go and eat. They have some of the best food in America. They get food because of the French influence, right?
Yes, of course.
They
Yes.
really get food.
Oh,
And
wow.
they are proud of their food, and they're proud of their music and the
Yeah.
heritage,
And the heritage.
and yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And if you heard, you may have watched this, but Treme, there was a TV series on HBO.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard of it, called Treme, Treme? It's a
I
suburb of,
have, yes.
yeah, and it
Yep.
has it's 4 seasons, highly recommended viewing. Fantastic. John
What?
Goodman's in it, so many great, but really there's some real musicians in it. Dr. John's in
Oh,
it,
cool.
John
Yep.
Cleary's in it, Trombone Shorty's in it. Yeah, yeah. Check that out.
Yeah.
That gives you a great
Wow.
insight and will inspire you to go to New Orleans. This is
I think
fantastic,
you
yeah.
you have inspired me. I was already inspired, but I
Oh
think
yeah.
you've just taken that to
Yeah.
another
Plus,
level,
you've got the
George.
second lines, all these second lines that are free that you can just tag along to, these second lines that are just
Wow.
people dance along to. And we haven't even touched on Mardi Gras. Yeah,
No, they're
but
big on that there
all
as
of this
well.
underpinned by all the people there go to gigs, all the people there go to the second lines, all of them go to festivals. They don't just go
Mm.
to the big acts coming in; they go and
Yeah.
support all their local acts. They go to the Maple Leaf Bar. They don't just go to the big the Lead Belly, the big barns and stuff. They go to the small bars. They go to Frenchman Street where all the other ones are, like the Spotted Cat and all the other
Yeah.
DBAs and all. Because out of all the musical cities in the US, I think it's only on 1 mile, in a 1 mile 1 mile diameter.
Radius.
Well, no
Mm-hmm.
diameter. It's even smaller. You have the biggest collection of musical venues you have in the world. Like I just cannot see.
Wow.
Like you can, like, just Frenchman's. There's a street down in Frenchman's, like nowhere near Bourbon Street, but that's where you get the real taste of, like, just in the space of 2 blocks there. There's probably like 20 bars, and all of them have at least two stages, or one stage that will have 5 acts on it.
Wow.
Yeah, so they'll
Wow.
start the music, say, in the afternoon, so there'll be one band, and then there'll be an early evening show, then there'll be a late evening show, and then there'll be a late show, and they'll finish up at 5 a.m.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they'll go to 5 a.m.
That's some music.
Yeah, so
We really need to step our game up, us
oh, we
Australians, don't
really do.
we?
And the other thing that they have is a very, very strong community radio. WWOZ
Mm-hmm.
is their local. It's a community run all volunteers, and it's some of the best radio you'll ever hear.
And what was it again?
WWOZ or Z, we say, but they say OZ.
Yeah.
I think it's 90. Anyway, you can look it up online and listen to them online. And seriously,
I think I'm going to do that.
Yeah, have a listen. It's really, and you can, every now and then they'll put the gig guide on, and the gig guide, seriously, you listen to it, goes for 10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
The gig guide, they'll say, okay, here's the gig guide coming up for the next, for this week, and it will go for 10 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah, and this is like New Orleans. It's not like Sydney's like, what, probably 3 times its population.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. It's not like, I'm not sure what New Orleans, but what are we? 6 million or something? I'm not sure what New Orleans is.
Something horrific. Yeah.
But yeah. Like New Orleans is a lot smaller.
And and in that concentration is just some of the best musicians in the world. I would expect.
Absolutely.
I'm really keen to go there.
Oh,
now.
please
Thanks.
do.
Rob, thank you for that.
Anyone that loves music should definitely have a trip down there.
Yeah, definitely. I am keen for that as. All right, now I'm going to go back to, so you've done when you were 9, when you were 15, you did, when you were in high school.
And had to
did you have a band in, did you have a band in high school?
Yes, I did. I formed a band, and it was a pretty bad name. We called ourselves Pandemonium.
Pandemonium. I like that name,
yeah,
but it just conjures up thoughts of this is going to be kind of all over the joint.
Yeah, I know, right? Not really what you should be trying to project.
No.
The image you should be trying to project. But who knows? I was a rebelling teenager back then, wearing a black leather jacket.
Really?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. And I used to play a Strat and I used to play loud, etc., etc. But we did a couple of gigs, mainly just birthday parties and stuff like that in scout halls, and it was fun. I really enjoyed it. But
and from there,
and then after that, I sort of like got lost and stopped really pursuing music because I had to focus on my HSC and work out what I was going to do with my life. And I fell into the trap of going to the corporate world. But when I snapped out of that, I ended up falling in with, I found the first real big shift for me musically was when I heard Stevie Ray Vaughan for the first time. And I was probably 16. And that changed everything for me because back then, most of my, pursuits of trying to become more musically dexterous was like listening to a lot of Eddie Van Halen and all of those shredders, etc. And then I heard Stevie Ray Vaughan, and all of a sudden it was just like, oh, no. This is where I need to go. And Stevie Ray Vaughan opened the door for me to examine all the Kings and Hubert Sumlin and all the other cats and all of that, and really dig into the history of the blues a lot more.
Yeah.
And that changed everything for me. And then so therefore I found myself going to a lot more jams at the time. And it was at one of these jams at the Forest Inn of all places down in Bexley. The Forest Inn.
Down Bexley, yeah.
Yeah, remember the Forest Inn? It's still there. And Michelle Vandermeer was there singing, and I got up and had a jam with her, and then the very next day, her then bass player, he rang me up, and he said, "Hey, Michelle was wondering if you'd like to play guitar in her band," and I was just like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And then that was it.
Too cool.
So that was my first blues band that I got into, and I suppose that's probably, late teens. I can't even remember. Yep. So long ago. I've been with the Ramblers, with Michelle now for over 30 years. It's going back some.
30 years.
Over 30.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And isn't she just a queen? She's so great. Beautiful Michelle, and such a great
Michelle
voice.
And Flo, I love them. They're they've been there for me for so many things, but musically it's been always fun with Michelle. We've got so many stories.
Yeah.
You could imagine.
Well,
As you
know
could
what?
imagine, yeah.
Well, have you got a funny story
Oh,
for
I've
us
got
there,
plenty of funny
George?
stories, but I'm not sure if they're, PG.
Look, I'm sure that we can
Oh,
work
yeah,
around
okay.
that.
Well, you can censor out what you need to, just. But yeah, look, with Michelle, we did a lot of, because Michelle, obviously, we did a lot of gigs with bikie clubs, etc. And
Mm-hmm.
so there were quite a few, all sorts of stories that kind of like happened. But funnily enough, one of the funniest acts or gigs I've ever done
Mm-hmm.
was, and it was funny. I'm not sure whether I should divulge which band it was. It wasn't with Michelle. Maybe I should keep the names out of it so they're not.
Yeah, maybe keep the name
No, I'll
out.
keep the names out. Anyway, it was in Canberra. I was playing bass, funny enough, so I wasn't on guitar. I was on bass, and we're in Canberra. And before the gig, the band leader turned around and said, "How about you fellas? What about we do some acid for the gig tonight? Some LSD." Because he had some, or someone was given to him. I was just like, hey, what the hell, Hey, what the hell? How bad can it be?
That's a leading question. That is,
yeah.
How bad can it be?
How bad can it be? So
how bad was it?
Yeah, and so there were four of us. There were two guitarists, a drummer, and myself. And one of the guitarists had it, and the other guitarist didn't. The drummer did have it also, and myself. So there's just one guitarist that was not on the train. The rest of us were cruising down to wherever we were going to go. Strap yourselves in, 'cause it's going to be a hell of a night,
I think so.
Yeah. What's that from? Anyway, Virginia Woolf. But anyway, we ended up of course it takes like at least an hour or more. It was the old Canberra Inn. That's right, the old Canberra Inn. So we had to drive down there, and we had to set up the PA and that. Everything's fine, because they hadn't kicked in as yet. And then sure enough, we start the first song. and all the lights would go off, and they put these these weird ass those lights that they have in discos that like flash and move around their colours, and they're really even when you're not on acid, they're sort of like disorienting. You're like, holy shit, what's am I looking? You imagine if all of a sudden we just like, oh shit, here we go, and we're starting the first song, and straight away it's just like, holy moly. And sure enough, I turn around, and I'm feeling all of that sort of like goosebumps and all of that sort of stuff that happens when when the drugs sort of like starting to kick in. And I turn around to the drummer, and obviously it's kicking in for him too. And he looks at me, we make eye contact, and sure enough, we just start laughing uncontrollably, just hysterically, and we don't know what's funny. I don't know, but we're just pissing ourselves. And we're playing this song and just pissing ourselves. And then, sure enough, the other guitarist who also has taken it, he's looking at us, and sure enough, we make eye contact with him. Guess what happens? He's in on it too.
He starts laughing.
Oh my word! And we just had to stop looking. We could not look at each other for the rest of the gig. Because every time we did, we just would start laughing hysterically.
That sounds like it would have been a long 3 hours.
Oh, it was hilarious. But yeah, I had instances of out-of-body experiences. Oh, it was crazy. It was crazy. It was quite intense.
Oh, it sounds like a lot of fun.
In a hurry, but
no.
Part of me is curious.
Yeah. And what about the guitarist that didn't have anything?
Well,
he would have been just looking at you guys
I was about to get to our Mr. Straight, the straight man. So he was basically...
And you know who you are.
Yes, he was basically just there in the corner looking at it, just shaking his head, just going... And I'm sure he was probably going as well. But, it was just like, oh, well.
Tuttering.
And all I could say is, well, mate, you had your chance.
That's it. And did you guys do more gigs as a band after that?
Oh, yeah, we did. We did.
Yeah.
And to this day,
whenever
I mention it with those other two people, or even the straight man, even if I mention it, and I have seen them all since, and we're still all good mates.
Yeah.
We always
good
have
to
a
hear.
very, very big giggle about it. It's a great. It's a great.
Well, at least you can remember it. That's the thing.
It was so intense. I don't think I'll ever forget it. Yeah.
Have you been to any gigs where you were playing and the audience was just so out of control? You're just looking at them going, I'm enjoying the show more than playing.
Oh, well, I must admit, and it's really funny that um, sometimes the rowdiest gigs are the smallest gigs.
Oh,
uh,
really?
yeah, so this is probably going back maybe a year, or in the last 6 months, a year. I was doing a gig with Matt Ross and the Mavericks down at the Baxter Inn on the Sunday. They've changed that format now. Unfortunately, they've put their own house band in there, and they just get a guest in. So the whole, so if Matt Ross went and did it now, and I think he has, he goes in there and he plays with the Mason Brothers and Warren Trout, I think, the house band. But it's like, but Matt's got his own stuff that, and doing that with a pickup band isn't going to work. So, but anyway, when we did it as a full band, and we were rocking the joint, Ed Rodriguez on drums, myself, I was on bass, and Matt was on guitar, and there's no stage or anything, and it's just a very dark whiskey bar, underneath ground level, and it was pumping. We were just really in the pocket, and it got to the point so many people were dancing that there was like this woman, she was just basically dancing up against my back and pushing me up against my ass that I had to basically almost like kind of put my hip against my amp so she didn't push me over. And Ed was just like looking at me, the drummer. Ed was just looking at me and just laughing. And man, I thought she was about to push you into me, bro. And really, I was just like pedaling this, just hitting these huge like big bass notes, and she's just like, yeah, just pushing me even harder. So yeah, and it's such a high because you can just sense that like everyone's just really, really in the same.
Digging it.
Yeah, they're really in the same frame of mind. The same energy levels. Everyone's feeling the love. The love of music.
Oh, that's what you want. That is exactly what you want.
It's enthralling.
Yeah. So so you're still in Michelle's band.
Yeah, still playing.
You've had your little offshoot bands. So what would some of those be?
So I also play with Fran Little in Big Mama and the Charm Offensive.
Okay, she changed the name.
Well, yeah. So so we've got Aidan Glover now on bass, although sometimes he switches to guitar and I jump up on bass. And we also have Alison Penny, who's going to be on keys. We still have Ed we still have Ed on drums, of course. Yeah. And so I also played with Matt Ross. I play bass for him in the Matt Ross and the Mavericks. I also play guitar with Alison Penny and the Moneymakers.
Yes.
I also play guitar with the Marvelous Heart, which is a band that Craig Lyons, Captain Blue Tongue from Blues Preachers, is in, or it's his band. And I also run the Rocks and Jam every Thursday at Miss Seeley's.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, I've been running that for about over a year and a half now, I think.
Nice.
Not quite a year and a half, but yeah, May last year we started up at Miss Seeley's. It all started probably about 8 years ago when I first started it, way back at the Roxbury Hotel. Yeah.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, that was a long time. It was through that jam that I met a lot of people that I'm still friends with today, like the Glovers, Dave, Sue, and their son Aiden, and a lot of other people that came down were like Wayne Rigby came down, and trying to think of his name, Dan Moore, Pat Powell. We were getting like 100 people down to that jam on a Tuesday night.
That's only a small joint too.
Yeah, that was a big joint. The Roxbury Hotel.
The Roxbury. I beg your pardon.
Yeah, when we originally way back then, it was big enough to accommodate 100 people. So more recently, Paul Blasey, the owner of Miss Seeley's, he asked me whether I'd be interested in resurrecting it at Miss Seeley's on a Thursday. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to. And so I immediately asked Ed if he could be in the house band, and with Paul we set up the house band, and we set up a new format where we have a new special guest every week.
Nice.
And had some amazing guests last week. We had Gail Page, who you probably have heard of, I'm sure.
Yes, yes, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. And we've had Adam Pringle a couple of times, had Ray Beadle, Clayton Doley, and we were always getting some really great guests and artists, and everyone's loving it. We had Krista Hughes even from Machine Gun Fellatio.
Yeah.
And it's always a great vibe, and we have a lot of regular jammers who come down, and everyone loves it. And it's this really beautiful community, and everyone looks out for one another, and everyone's super positive and super supportive, and we get people from all over the world coming down. We've had people from Brazil,
cool.
Israel, China, all over the place, and they all love the blues and they all love the jam, and they've been many times. They keep coming back, and I'm glad.
How good is that? How good is that?
Oh,
well, that's a feather in your cap there, George.
I really love the community that we built there, and in a way, I feel as if via this community and the building of connecting more of these communities, because the other musical community that's sprouting up on the north side is Greg Noonan's little jam community,
yes,
like the Bandits of Blues community. He's doing a great job of fostering there, and the thing is, recently we've sort of like connected, and by merging what we're both doing, it's sort of like, hey, we actually can get a lot of stuff done. We could actually do stuff that revitalizes the scene, because if you got a community large enough, so by combining the community I've managed to develop plus the community he's managed to develop, we actually started to kind of talk about things, enough numbers to get stuff happening.
You know what? I'm very excited about that.
So are we.
Please let me know if you do, because I'll have you both on, and we can talk about that.
Absolutely,
that would be,
would love to. Yeah.
For the scene in music in general in Australia, in Sydney, that would be just what we need. I think
absolutely, and it's
really
almost as if I feel as if it's really strange. It's only now that I've kind of like past the half century mark that I can see that the best way to achieve things is collectively.
Yes. Yeah.
And the greater that collective is, and the greater the passion and desire that they all have, the more you can accomplish. And
absolutely.
And I feel as if that's really the key to why New Orleans and music works so well. Yes. Because they've been doing that now for over a century, that's why, and that's why they felt really, really let down by, the Bush government after Katrina.
Right? That was just a mess.
Yeah, and a lot of that was to do with because that whole area that was flooded, and it's like one of the highest concentration of Black and Hispanic Americans.
Yes.
Isn't that?
That was just a terrible, terrible time, and I couldn't imagine going through that.
Yeah, and it's funny enough, that's really covered in that series that I mentioned earlier, Tremaine, where that's all set post Katrina, and it really was a mess, and they were just like, seriously, these people were just left to drown. It was horrible. It was just horrible. Yeah,
just a shame. Yeah. Shame.
But positively, going back to what Greg and I like, we're talking about, like doing things like super jam cruises on the harbour, where we
wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah, things that really will do more to inspire people, more to kind of like get people out and kind of just, we need more activities. We need more reasons to get people out of the house. Because surely everyone's watched everything that's on Netflix by now. I have. You can only watch
so
Archer
much.
so many times.
Oh, that's it. So, George, how did you find being hit with being a working musician, being hit with COVID? And I know that I know Fran did. Please correct me if I'm wrong, that you guys did kind of like a lounge room thing.
We did I think it was called Live from the Big Chair. We did
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
yes.
we did some live I forget what it's called, streaming, yes, live
Yes,
video
yes, yes, yes,
streaming.
yeah.
Yeah, we did a bit
Yeah,
of that, just
yeah,
to just try and keep ourselves sort of like, I don't know,
yeah.
in the
In
music
the loop.
game somewhat,
Yeah,
and to see each other mainly as well. We were all a bit lonely, I
yeah.
guess.
Oh, definitely. I know I was at one point. But
Yeah.
now, from that, being, when we were all locked down and stuff,
Yeah.
did you find that a creative time for you, especially, or not really? Like, as in writing music or instrumentals, for example?
Yeah, I did do some writing, and I did some collaborations with other people also. But I must admit that I did spend a lot of it just reading and doing other mundane things that I suppose all of us were doing. It was
Yeah,
hard to find the inspiration, I found, just because there was not as much activity in life.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I guess cerebrally there was some creativity, but not the same sort of exciting creativity that you
yeah,
get from
right.
ordinary life.
Yeah,
It was a bit more melancholy.
yeah, right, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Mm.
part of it was also frustration that we all felt for being
Oh,
stuck in and
yes.
locked down, and anger and disappointment when we got locked down again because they
Yes.
wouldn't lock down the eastern suburbs, so we all suffered the consequences of it. Oh, it's just so frustrating. And Gladys, oh
Hey,
gosh, shut the hell up. Stop saying,
oh, look, it was
stop
just,
blaming the health minister, stop blaming this, stop blaming,
yeah,
just
right.
for Christ's sake, the buck stops with you. And it did in the end, didn't it? Thank Christ for
Yes, well,
that.
it did. You know, I still can't quite believe that that's happened in my
I
lifetime.
know. It was
It's just
it
horrendous.
was it was very difficult. I remember at the time when I did the last gig, it was with the Marvelous Hearts. We were down at the Vault down in Port Kembla,
Hmm.
and this was in the February 2020, just before the lockdown was announced, the very first lockdown.
Yeah.
And all we had at the time were reports of what was happening in China, in Italy, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes. Yes.
And all I remember is looking up and down the main street of Port Kembla, and it
Hmm.
was deserted. Not a soul.
Yes.
And I'm just going, what the hell is going on? And that's when you're
Yeah.
just thinking, oh, it's like a movie almost. It's like surreal. And
Absolutely.
it really
Absolutely
was.
surreal.
And it was
Yeah.
really surreal. And what's more, because of the disbelief, the how unreal everything was, it,
Mm.
it it enabled a lot of misinformation and conspiracy theories, I suppose, to start
Yeah.
cropping up,
True.
that we all sort of like were subjected to at first, and we didn't know what to believe, and all of that was very confusing. And if you sort of like deep, it was a rabbit hole. If you went down that rabbit hole, you'd never
Mm.
come out. And unfortunately,
Yeah.
I saw a lot of friends and people that I knew go down that rabbit hole over the course of COVID, and some
Wow.
haven't come out somehow. And that was
Oh,
also,
wow.
that was very sad as well, like the mental aspect of it. And I feel as if this is something that we need to be careful as a the whole
Society, yeah.
civilization needs to be careful of this,
Mm-mm.
because what we've unleashed with social media has so much power over us, and
Oh,
that
yes.
we've just seen that misinformation can really cause some really great evils.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
agree. I
it can
totally
inspire
agree.
some incredibly evil things to happen, and I'd hate for that. And it's really strange that a lot of things happen one after the other, sort of thing. Is like Trump got elected, Brexit happened, Boris got elected, Scott Morrison got
Yeah,
re-elected,
gosh.
and then damn COVID. Like, Christ, like, geez, we just, what other punch was going to hit us?
Yeah, right.
It
Oh,
was a
it
bit
was
like
just,
that.
I think, let's just all hope and pray that never ever happens
Yeah, let's
again,
hope so. Let's hope
you
so.
know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
fingers crossed.
So now, we were just talking a moment ago about you writing some music. Now,
Sure.
I don't quite know you as a singer. Do you do some singing there,
I,
George, or
I
no?
do. I do some singing. I haven't really committed my voice to recordings much, apart from some backing vocals. But I do
Mm-hmm.
sing live. I suppose part of that is because I mainly just sing covers.
Right.
Yeah. But
Okay.
yeah, no, I enjoy having a good sing, and it's something that has taken me a while to get. Look, I suppose it comes down to early trauma. You know, when I
Right.
was younger, I used to love to sing, and then unfortunately, I sung in front of people who I thought were my friends, and they made fun of me. And
Oh,
yeah, and it's really hard to
morals.
come back from that when people that claim to be your friends,
Do that to you.
yeah, you know.
You understand now that that was jealousy, right?
Well, I'm not sure what it was, but all I know is I shouldn't have listened to it and I shouldn't have paid any
No,
attention to it. That's really what
no.
I should have done. But back then, it's hard when you're young and you crave that acceptance and from other people,
Absolutely.
especially your friends, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
part of that is also that whole alpha male Aussie blokey thing,
Yeah, yeah.
that sort of like, oh, I need to cut you down and make myself feel a bit better about myself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's a real Aussie tradition, isn't it? And I can't
And
wait for
it's
that to be killed off.
yes, I was going to say that's so wrong.
Oh, it
So
is.
wrong. So I want to get back to music
Yeah,
that you have
sure.
written there, George.
Yeah, I've written mainly instrumental stuff. Mainly
Okay,
instrumental.
well, I would like to now listen to a track that you have sent me, and
Yes.
it's an instrumental, and it's called.
I have tentatively titled it Pad Pando. Yet, if any of your listeners have a better suggestion for what it should be titled, please let me know. Email me at, well, send me a private message on it on Facebook.
On Facebook.
That's fine. But
So,
I'm
well,
open to any suggestions.
okie doke. We'll just take one moment and we will listen to Pad Pando. Well, George, I've got to say that that is a fantastic track, and I didn't expect anything less from you.
Oh, you're too kind, Crystal. Thank you very much.
Well, you give credit where credit is due, and I think, like I said, that moment down at the Bald-Faced Stag, now that must be about 6 or more years ago, and I heard you and I just went, I didn't know you could do that with a guitar.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of things you can do with the guitar.
I didn't know you could make it sound like honey.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's what I think, how you play it
you.
sounds. And you know
well,
what? And you know the other thing that when I was introduced to you, I think it was by Keith and Tanya, or I don't know who. It might have been them. I just went,
Yeah,
wow,
probably.
what a great guy. Just so laid back and so generous and so warm and genuine.
No, you haven't seen me behind the wheel. No, I'm always in a hurry. It's because I'm always in a hurry.
Are you?
Well, I'm usually running late to something.
Are you?
I am that sort of a guy. But
Now,
thank you for being thank you for all your beautiful, kind words, Crystal.
they're all true. They're all true, and thank you. Now, I do have a question because I have seen on several occasions you play barefoot. Now, is that
Not in a while.
Not in a while?
Not in a while, but yeah, I have thought about bringing it back.
Yeah. Now, I'm just curious, is that because that is more comfortable or because you feel the beat of the music better, the vibe of the music better? What is it for you?
Well, to be honest with you, it did start with just comfort.
Right.
It's just more comfortable to just turn up at a gig with my thongs on.
Mm-hmm.
And I always thought that it just looked a bit bogan to get up with thongs on the stage. So I just kicked them off.
Yeah, right.
So that's how it started. So it actually started just basically me being lazy.
Oh,
Too lazy to put shoes and socks on. And it was really warm, I believe. So
I think it was too.
Did that, and I just kicked my thongs off side of stage, and I played. And what I found was I could actually sense the beat and the music, and just I could sense more through my feet.
Well, actually, I've found that too.
And it's not something not some new age hippie bullshit. It's like you can empirically do it. Like absolutely take your shoes off and go bare. Yeah, I suppose you could leave your socks on if you're that way inclined, but I'm not that sort of a guy.
Yeah.
I've got to take my socks off.
Yeah. I love it.
So yeah, and I think the first time I did it, wherever it was on a pretty decent stage. So most decent stages should have some resonance.
Yes.
And so you could actually feel, especially the kick and all the low notes.
Yes.
And that's to me is the pulse. And recently I saw Ray Beadle give a really pretty good masterclass at 301 Studios for Tasman guitars, and someone asked him about what about rhythm, and he was like, the pulse. He goes, man, that's everything. The pulse is everything. If there's no pulse, then you're not really making music, and that's no truer words have been spoken, right?
I kind of agree with that, yeah.
Absolutely, and I remember years ago when Jackie Orzaski, you remember when he used to have that legendary Tuesday residency? It used to be at the Rose of Australia, then he moved it to at Newtown RSL Club.
Yes.
And I used to go religiously to that, as did many other. I remember seeing, Ilya Speck there amongst, Adam, a whole bunch, everyone would go there. The musos hang. And afterwards, we would all go up to the townie, up the road, the Town Hall Hotel in Newtown. And so would Jack. Jack Orzaski would sit, and I just would sit there, and I was going through a really big, steep learning curve. I'd discovered Victor Wooten, and I'd gone through a lot of his instructional stuff. And one of the points he kept making was rhythm. It's all about the rhythm.
Okay.
And I took that to Jack, and I was like, Jack, man, I'm just like, Jackie, I've realized something that I wish I'd known ages ago. And he goes, what's that? He goes, what's that? I was like, man, it's rhythm is more important than pitch. He looked at me, no, man, melody, man, you need melody. I was like, no, man. I said, no, Jack, like, hear me out. He was very like, no, because he's, a teacher, music teacher, and that he can't like say that rhythm's everything.
Yeah.
And I just said to him, hear me out, man. Like, seriously, if you've got a guitarist in your band, and okay, they're going to hit the right notes, right? But they're going to hit them out of time. Or you got some guy there, he's not actually hitting any notes. He's just doing chaka, 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 chaka. But man, that rhythm is so effective. You want to dance to it. Now, which guy do you want in your band? He's like looking at me and he's like, but no, man, but no. But yeah, like I must admit that was a big a big step for me, realizing that, because I feel as a guitarist we focus too much on playing solos. Especially jammers, guitarists that are jamming, they think that every song that you play is basically a blues song where you just strum these chords waiting for your chance to solo and shine.
Yes, yep. And that's a little problem, I think.
That's a huge problem, because you
especially when they solo over the singer.
Oh, well, there's that. But what the problem is, in order to get good at soloing, you need to be good at playing rhythm.
Yes.
And if you haven't practiced how to play rhythm, how do you expect to be good at doing a solo? Your rhythm's going to suck. Why? Because you haven't been practicing your rhythm. And a lot of that came about from me learning to becoming a bass player and really trying to be really conscious of my rhythm and where I'm placing the notes.
Right.
And from there, when I would go back to the guitar, I was super conscious of my placement of chords where I'd be hitting things, and it made me a better rhythm guitarist. And I went through a stage of only wanting to play rhythm guitar in all the bands. And to this day, like in Ali Penny's band, like, because Matt Ross, who's a brilliant guitarist himself, fantastic soloist, I just let him do all the soloing, and I'm on rhythm.
Wow.
Because I love playing. Yeah, rhythm is where it's at.
Well, I was going to ask that question. What do you prefer to? Yeah.
Oh, I love playing all parts of music, but for me, playing bass is brilliant to getting people to dance. Yes. And playing rhythm guitar is the same thing, And it's once you jettison that ego and you realize that you're always, whenever you're making music, it's to serve the song.
Yeah.
You accomplish great things, and it's not about the number of notes you play. It's about where you place them and making sure that they're the right ones, or as close to it as you can get. And where you place them musically in time, because music is the only, it's a temporal art form, and so it relies on time, and it is totally time based. So therefore, good time makes for good music.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, George, I think that you're doing a great thing with this blues, Rocks and Blues, is it?
The Rocks and Jam. The
Rocks and Jam
at
Miss Sealy's every Thursday night in Ashfield. And I think everybody should get down there and
absolutely,
and support, and maybe get up and have a sing or a jam as well. And
we encourage all styles, not just blues, whatever you want.
All styles. Actually, that was one more question.
Sure.
What is your favourite genre?
Oh, I think it's hard for me to answer that, because as a musician, I feel that I would like to be great at all genres. Really, that's the dream of every musician, I think. I'd really love to be able to pick up a classical guitar and play some Segovia, and be able to pick up a violin and rattle off some Paganini.
Yeah.
And pick the piano. I'd love to be able to play the piano and play some Rachmaninoff.
Yeah.
All of that stuff. But unfortunately, I can only do so much in the limited time that I have to live.
Yes.
But I would say that it comes down to what Duke Ellington said, which he said, there's only two types of music, good and bad. And then he actually suffixed it with, and I like both. And it's sort of like that. I will listen to anything. I've listened to all sorts of stuff, experimental noise music, SPK, one of the first noise bands that were Australian band. Have you heard of them? SPK.
Yeah, I have actually.
SPK. I actually know one of the members, Dom Guerin, if he's listening.
Oh, cool.
But and he's still making this noise music stuff. And I've gone over to his place and recorded this experimental noise stuff with him.
Wow.
I'm on his album. I'm going to see there. I've got it
Cool.
here in front of me. It's called Normalization of Response. And actually, Ed Rodriguez is on it as well.
Yeah.
It's by Tone Generator and the Body Without Organs. So I love all styles. I cannot pick one. I guess I have a preference, and that's only because I dabble in this stuff, and it's blues and jazz. But I love funk. I dabble in funk as well, and rock and some pop. But, you know, I'll give anything a crack. I'll have a go.
It's
Like
good.
one of the things I did do during COVID was I bought myself a classical guitar because I didn't have a good classical guitar.
Good.
And I sat down and started teaching myself some Bach pieces on solo guitar. Yeah, like Air on the G string and you know, all of these classical pieces that I just love. I really love classical music, especially Bach.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. I love
Bach and
classical.
Chopin. Both Bach and Chopin are just they were very, very big for me. Classic, you know, the classical genre.
Yeah.
And Liszt, and to a lesser degree, but
Haydn,
you know,
Beethoven. You could go on and on, couldn't you?
Beethoven a lot, but Bach just had this incredible, amazing, and like the guy, like I read a biography of his life. He really had some bad luck, man. He had like 18 kids, more than half of them died. He went through his 2 wives.
Oh my God!
Yeah, absolutely. One of his wives died while he was off, like on a work thing where he had to go and install or test some newly installed organ in some church.
Right.
And he came back to find out his wife's dead.
Oh no.
Yeah, and
That's
yet he was
pretty
still
unfortunate.
and he was still writing these songs of praise the Lord and praise thee Jesus and all of this.
Wow, eh?
Right.
That's a love of the music, I think.
It really was. It really was. It was his soul redemption, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, it has some incredible emotional impact.
Yeah. And have you ever given guitar lessons, George?
I have, and I occasionally do, but I don't regularly. In fact, I try and refer them to people who actually know what they're doing. People like Simon Kinney Lewis, he's a really great guitar teacher. Matt Ross also teaches, and a few others do. But yeah, I don't generally do that because part of the problem I have found is that whenever I have taught, people just aren't interested in doing the practice between the weekly lessons. And I feel as if I keep repeating the same lesson. And I just feel as if it's unfair on them.
Right.
And I just kind of say, look, it's not really working out. Because I think part of the deal of being a teacher to a student is, you know, I will teach you something, but you need to be practicing.
Absolutely.
And if I'm teaching you stuff and you're not doing anything with it, then it feels as if it's a hollow exercise.
Yes.
And we can both be spending our times doing something else rather than having this little weird, awkward thing that we do every week. Where we all go, only excuses made why you haven't practiced. And then I kind of go, oh, that's okay, don't worry about it. Here, let's go over it again.
Yeah. And it gets somewhat frustrating too, wouldn't it?
And it does. And it's just, and I've spoken to other, you know, names withheld here to protect the innocent. But, you know, where, you know, they kind of go, oh man, how many times I have to show them that D code? You know, something like that, you know.
Yeah.
And I know that frustration because it, you know, part of me is like, come on, man, it's not that hard. You know, it's music. You know, it is quite a bit difficult, but with a bit of practice, if that's all it takes, it's just a little bit of practice.
That's
and
right.
Sometimes it's as little as 10 minutes a day, you know, and then eventually, if you just do 10 minutes a day, then maybe the next week will be 20 minutes a day.
Yeah.
And then you get to a point where it feels so good, you won't want to stop.
Absolutely. I got to a point during COVID there where my fingers were like literally just about bleeding because I just thought, I'm just enjoying this so much.
Exactly. What a lovely way to, like, you know,
pass time. Yeah.
Pass time and meditate on something that just
100%
keeps you away from your everyday stresses.
And isn't it amazing that here you have an inanimate object, a bit of wood with some strings, and we can make them sing.
Really? Yeah, and it's basically
you in this
and
case.
When you think about it, it's all just air vibrating.
Yeah,
that's all music is. It's just air vibrating to certain patterns.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And if you want to go even further, it's basically just, you know, atoms rotating.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Right. It's just the
Sounds
more
like
you
a
kind
Beatles
of
song
delve into
there.
it, and there really is this almost like mystical angle to music that like if you only kind of go into Indian classical music and all of the Tibetan music, etc.
Hmm.
There is mysticism in music.
Absolutely.
It's been used to heal. It's used by Tibetan monks.
Hmm.
They have certain tones that are meant to be able to clear, and in the Indian ragas, etc. It's meant to be a healing resonance.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I
and
totally
and it
agree.
all is meant to be, and traditionally it's all meant to be played live, and it's meant to be this energy flow between the performers and the audience.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, George, I reckon that finding the blues jams back in the day, that certainly saved me.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah, it
Saved us all,
certainly gave me back life.
doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think you're a big part of that. So, I really am so pleased that you're on the show with me and speaking on these subjects and being so free and easy and just so
Oh,
nice.
I'm just so humbled to be asked. Thank you so much, Crystal. I can't
Well,
believe we've just been chatting for 90 minutes or more.
I know, you know what? Because that's what great musos can do.
Oh, it's
And
always good
you're
to
in
have
that,
you.
and you're in that level, a great
You
muso.
could talk about music forever, can't
You know
you?
what? I absolutely can.
Absolutely, yeah.
There's just
Same.
so many questions. Like I could just keep
Mm.
asking and asking and
Oh, and
asking.
I could keep talking and talking and keep asking more questions myself. It's just great. I love it.
Yeah, you know what? I would love to have you back at some point in the future.
Absolutely, yeah.
I
I'd
look
love to
forward
be
to
back.
that. Oh, thank you,
Absolutely.
George. Thank you.
No
So we
worries.
can look forward to you performing somewhere soon.
Yeah. I'm sure I'd be somewhere in Sydney. I've got some
So
gigs coming up all over the
So
place.
where could people find you? Do you have you've got your social media? Do you have a paid like a
Yeah,
musician
I must
page?
admit, I'm a bit bad with the whole social media thing. It must be because I'm an angry old man. Yeah, so apart from I got the Rocks and Jam that I do every Thursday. Occasionally I take a night off and go and do a sneaky gig with Matt Ross and Mavericks at Shady Pines, which I will be doing next Thursday on the
Mm-hmm.
28th.
Mm-hmm.
I'm playing with the Marvelous Hearts this weekend, but I'm not sure when this is going to be broadcast. I'm not sure when any of
It
this
might be a
should be.
couple of weeks actually. So
Yeah,
we'll say
so
Miss Seeley's is probably the best place to catch up with you on a
yeah,
Thursday
you can
night.
catch up with me at Miss Seeley's, and if you really want to know, you can just send me a Facebook Messenger, and I'll let you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sort of like the Marvelous Hearts got quite a few gigs coming up, and I'm doing plenty of gigs at Miss Seeley's.
Oh, perfect. Well, I'm sure
Yeah.
everyone will be able to find you there, and George will be the cool dude. Just to
I'll
let us
try.
know, you'll know, you'll look and you'll go, oh yeah, that's George.
Oh, we'll see about
All
that.
right then. Well, we might call it a night here. And once again,
Fantastic.
thank you so much, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Same here, Crystal. All right.
Thank you, George.
Cheers.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you. Good night. Bye.
Bye. And that was the absolutely fabulous George Rigatos. Remember, he's going to be down at Miss Seeley's in Ashfield every Thursday night for the Rocks and Jam. You have been listening to Conversations with Crystal. I am your hostess, Crystal. And until next week, when I bring you another fabulous guest, please stay safe, stay happy, stay cool, and stay awesome. And don't forget, please stay tuned to this channel. Good night.